Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for joining me. January 5, 2021. So I have some news to share with you. Uh, things happening every second. Sometimes you can't even, accommodate the major news. So I reported last time the arrest of Oromo uh, political prisoner Johar Mohammed. Uh, so now the family of Johar Mohammed released. So uh, they are not supposed to be arrested in the first place. So Abiy Ahmed is just using his authority. He tried to show the world to the Oromos he can do whatever he wanna do. Try to show the force by intimidating tactics and torturing psychologically to torture the prisoners when they hear about their family arrested. They will think about it, worry about it. That's the benefit he tried to get, torturing us, and try to hurt the politicians. So for now, uh, they are released. The two sisters and the others arrested at the same time. Bakale Garba, another Oromo politician, driver, his driver also released. So, as I said, this is intimidating tactics, illegal terrorizing tactics, which supposed to, which is not supposed to happen. So, and the war in the northern part between TDF and Ethiopian Federal Force and the militia, plus the Eritrean forces, still going on in western Tigray region, and also the situation in Kobo, the city of Kobo, is still no breakthrough. We are watching it, so we will report to you where as soon as something happens in that area. But TDF is now defending itself and also attacking those invaders to the region. So today I have some news to share, and I will start with a video today. Then I will read the other news after the video. So I will start with the White House very short briefing on this serious virus, COVID-19, and what the White House is doing, and a little bit updates on that front. And then about OLA operation in Oromia from Finfinne News Network. After that, I will read some other news to you. Thank you again for joining me. Let's listen.
Okay. I only have one item at the top for all of you. Um, just wanted to provide a brief update on our federal testing sites, which we continue to expand and are doing strong work to reach Americans, especially in the areas where we're seeing the greatest need. Throughout the holiday, we worked to rapidly establish free testing sites in multiple states, and in the coming weeks, we'll have new sites operating across the nation. Additional sites are opening this week in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, with Maine, Maryland, Nevada, Delaware, Texas, and Washington state to follow. Mobile federal testing sites are now open in New York City and New Jersey, which are providing thousands of free tests daily. Our 12 testing sites in New York City alone have processed over 8,700 tests since the first site launched shortly before Christmas. These sites have been effective in reaching a diverse set of communities, with 76% of those tested in New York City and 82% of those in New Jersey self-identifying as non-white. These numbers reflect the Biden administration's commitment to ensuring that our hardest hit and hardest risk communities have equitable access to testing. With that, Darlene.
Okay, this is the second one for today, and no more other videos. So this is Finfinne Network News Network. I mean, Finfinne News Network.
Welcome back to Finfinne News Network, FNN News, and I am your host, Sibel. In news on the OLA troops operating in the Hitabu Abote district reported killing over 103 soldiers and injuring 117 of the Prosperity Party forces. Meanwhile, the OLA stationed in the Abuna Gindabarat area of northwest Shawa also reportedly killed an unidentified high-ranking Prosperity Party military commander. Meanwhile, Prosperity Party troops reportedly used drones to attack a school called Abdi Boru, located in the Dara district in the Meda local administration in the town of Cheka. No casualties were reported after that attack. However, another recent drone attack in Meta killed more than 20 civilians. The OLF has also recently put out a press release addressing reports of a recent uptick of drone bombings and military airstrikes by government forces that have targeted residential Oromo areas and killed multiple civilians. We'll put that up on the screen now. According to that press release from the OLF, in the Karayu area in East Showa, in Hararge, in the Mieso and Machara area, and also in Gindibarat highlands and lowlands, as well as in Salali, Mita, Walkishe, and Kiramu areas. These have all been recently targeted. And according to the press release, this marks a change from past bombings that largely affected areas in Wolo and western Walega. And the press release also calls on the international community to exert pressure on Abiy Ahmed and the Prosperity Party to stop the bombings of these highly populated Oromo towns. And it says here, this is a direct quote, "Once again, we would like to reiterate that the Ethiopians' multi-layered political and human rights demands can only be resolved through truly stopping the war and all-inclusive political discussions and settlements, but surely not through drones and airstrikes." In other news on Oromia, a new report out from the Oromia Broadcasting Network found that mass displacements from multiple kebeles in the Guto-Gida Woreda that FNN previously reported on resulted from clashes between the OLA, the Benishangul Gumuz People's Liberation Movement, and Amhara militias. One Oromo resident told OBN that back in November, when these conflicts first started that resulted in these mass displacements, the OLA had attacked both the BPLM and these groups of armed Amhara militias, and in turn, the latter two groups, the BPLM and these Amhara groups, took revenge on Oromo civilians by looting and destroying property in the area. And in this report, the zone's administrator, Alemayehu Tesfaye, estimated that around 128,200 people have been displaced as a result of this violence. So we will share now a clip from that OBN report.
Obbo Caalaa Fayyee jedhamu jiraataa aanaa Diggaa ganda biqiltuu guddinaa jedhamutti jiraachaa turanis har'a garuu finxaalayyaa Amaaraa humnoonni badii beenii waliin qindaa'uun mandaraa keenya barbadeessuu isaaniitiin miidhaamaaf saaxilamneerra jechuun ni dubbatu.
Kun argite waan barbadeessite mana keenya nu ariite horiin keenya inni kaan qalattee nyaatte isa kaan immoo kun babbaddee achi jirti harka keenya qullaaf akkatuma faadhaan mana keenya keessaa hiriyaame bakkee jirraam.
Walloo fi Gumuz wal maratee mana kanatti dakaa'uu jalqaban. Ilmoo qabu ilmoo didhiisee akka jirutti hoon asiin karaa arjuu faca'ee.
So this is a miserable life our people are enduring under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed.
butanii wallooni butanii haarii isaa irraa kan ka'e iddoo isaanitti bu'uu san dhabdee hawaasa keenya itti buute jechuudha. Manneen hin hafne horiis ni fudhatanii beenyi loojii fi ruuzii hababattoonni manatti tuulan ni gubate jechuudha.
Waan hin qabu tokko hin qabu horiinis hin babbadde waan tokko hin baafan ammucaa koo kan koo.
So again, that is a recent report out from the Oromia Broadcasting Network in which several civilians of the Guto Gida Wareda were interviewed about a wave of mass displacement that took place after conflicts broke out in the area and forced civilians, Oromo civilians, to flee their homes. Moving on to news on international relations. U.S. Special Envoy to the Horn of Africa, Jeffrey Feltman, is set to travel to Ethiopia and begin peace talks with government officials this Thursday, January 6th, according to the U.S. State Department. And this move comes after the U.S. made the decision to cut Ethiopia, in addition to two other countries, out of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, the AGOA, which is a duty-free trade program or agreement. And those two other countries that were also cut out along with Ethiopia are Mali and Guinea. And according to a statement put out by the U.S. Trade Representative's office back in November, the move was an attempt to discourage continued human rights abuses perpetrated by the Ethiopian government. So Biden had first threatened to make this move to remove the three countries back in November, and he finally followed through on this New Year's Day, January 1st. So here's a quote from this statement from the U.S. Trade Representative. Our administration is deeply concerned by the unconstitutional change in governments in both Guinea and Mali, and by the gross violations of internationally recognized human rights being perpetrated by the government of Ethiopia and other parties amid the widening conflict in northern Ethiopia. So going forward, we will have to see what the conclusion of those talks that will be going on this week as Jeffrey Feltman travels to Ethiopia might be. And in a new interview with the Washington Post, a former minister of Ethiopia, Filsan Abdi, revealed that she was actually told to alter reports on mass rape and recruitment of child soldiers in the Tigray region to portray that only the TPLF was responsible for those crimes. So she details in this interview how Prime Minister Abiy had assigned her to create a task force to investigate this wave of rape and child military recruitment around Mekelle, the capital of Tigray, as well as other regions of that area. However, after she finished her report, the government actually refused to release it, and Filsan later resigned around 9 months later in September, even after Prime Minister Abiy had asked her to postpone her resignation because he thought that the war would soon be at an end. So here's a quote that she told the reporter from that interview. We brought back the most painful stories and every side was implicated. But when I wanted to release our findings, I was told that I was crossing a line. You can't do that, is what an official very high up in Abiy's office called and told me. And I said, you asked me to find the truth, not to do a propaganda operation. I am not trying to bring down the government. There is a huge rape crisis, for God's sake. Child soldiers are being recruited by both sides. I have the evidence on my desk in front of me. So again, that's taken from an interview that Filsan Abdi, former minister of Ethiopia, who earlier resigned in September, discussing about how she was asked to essentially falsify and then later not release reports that she helped to conduct on the recruitment of child soldiers in the northern Tigray region, as well as a wave of mass rapes. So that is all for today. We will continue to update our audience on what continues to happen in those upcoming talks between Jeffrey Feltman and Ethiopian officials, as well as continuing developments around the OLA's progress and news on Oromia. Again, thanks for watching FNN News, Finfine News Network, and I am your host, Sibel.
Okay, thanks to Bell, Finfinne News Network. So I appreciate you. So, concerned citizens media appreciated the lady Faisal Abdi. Faisal, is it Faisal Abdi? Minister of Youth for resigning on the issue, of truth. If she could lie, she could stay in power, but she didn't want to. She wanted to cross the line to tell the truth. That is a sign of true public service, to say loudly and clearly when the situation demand. Abiy Ahmed want her to falsify report, to lie about it. She refused, and she returned the letter of resignation. So she should be appreciated. She is sacrificing her position for the constituents she's serving. So she deserves Nobel Prize for that. That is the kind of move we want from public servant. Those who are just clapping their hand, those who are voting for every issue 100%. We don't like this. We don't like. We need ministers, parliament members to take every issue seriously. Whether it is war or budget or whatever it is, when it comes, they have to ask questions. And they have to see what are the consequences of Abiy Ahmed's policy. So thank you, Faisal Abdi, for that courageous stand, losing your position for public interest. Okay, let's read some other news and finish up today's presentation. Thank you again. Tigrayans deported from Saudi Arabia in Ethiopia. This is a report from Human Rights Watch. It says Tigrayans deported from Saudi abused in Ethiopia. Thousands of Tigrayans deported from Saudi Arabia after months of inhumane detention have on their return to Ethiopia been arbitrarily detained, mistreated, and have forcibly disappeared, according to a Human Rights Watch investigation. Ethiopia started repatriating some of the hundreds of thousands of its nationals that had fled to Saudi Arabia due to drought, human rights abuses, and seeking better economic conditions. About 40% of those deported between November 2020 and June 2021 were Tigrayans, most of whom were later transferred to detention facilities in the Afar region and southern Ethiopia. Ethiopia has been engulfed by a civil war that has killed thousands of people and displaced millions more. Conflict broke out 14 months ago when forces allied to the Tigray regional administration attacked a military base following months of tension with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. This report is, this claim, I reported on it, this is false. The war didn't start because TDF attacked the military base. That's false. That's false. It's already many media reported on it. The war started before that. Abiy Ahmed, Isaias Afwerki, and their supporters were cooking the war before that. Saudi Arabia deported more than 30,000 Ethiopians between June and mid-July of 2021, coinciding with an increase in profiling, arbitrary detention, and the forcible disappearance of Tigrayans in Addis Ababa. Human Rights Watch interviewed 23 Tigrayans for the report. Some said they had been beaten with rubber and wooden rods and denied travel to their families. Tigrayans account for about 6% of Ethiopia's population of more than 100 million people. The rights group called for an end to deportation of Tigrayans to Ethiopia because of the risk of persecution and asked the Ethiopian government to release Tigrayans in detention that haven't been charged. The Ethiopian government spokesperson didn't immediately respond to a request for comment on Human Rights Watch's report. Detained minors bribes. Meanwhile, there are reports of detaining minors with adults in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa and officers demanding bribes to potentially release those held. Human Rights Watch Horn of Africa Director Latitia Bader confirmed in an email response to questions. The Ministry of Justice said it is aware of the reports and it is taking action, including the charging of 7 police officers for bribery. Awal Sultan, the ministry's communication head, said in an interview. They don't represent the majority as there are so many committed and ethical police officers, Awal said. Awal said, however, Ethiopia is in a state of emergency and some police posts may have detained young offenders with adults because of space limitation. Even they don't have enough space to round up all Tigrayans and Oromos. So they have shortage of space. All the legal prisons plus the illegal ones now full. They don't have space. So it's a shame that Ethiopia is acting in this manner, even arresting, detaining, abusing those refugees coming back from Saudi's authority, Saudi's harsh treatment. The same thing happening back home, and it's the same thing happening in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is treating Ethiopians in a very different circumstance, very different situation. Never happened before. I never heard. I don't know. Maybe they are working in coordination with Ethiopian government, treating them like, less human. And I also attempted to reach the Saudi Arabia embassy today, and I couldn't have a chance to speak anybody. Nobody was picking the phone. Please do your part to reach them, tweet them, email them. What they're doing against Ethiopian refugees is very bad, very illegal, and is anti-Islamic principle. Okay, this one, Chinese foreign minister on visit to Eritrea, Kenya, and Comoros. Chinese foreign minister Wang Yi started his New Year diplomatic trip to Africa from January 4 to 7. Wang arrived in Eritrea on Tuesday and will also visit Kenya and Comoros. Credit for this one, cgtn.com. cgtn.com. So China is, widening its influence in Africa. And last time, foreign minister was in Ethiopia, now in Eritrea and Kenya and Comoros. We don't know what they are cooking. I don't think they are working for peace. they want to keep Isaias Afwerki and Abiy Ahmed in place. That's why they are just, visiting to strengthen the relationship. That's why you hear in the United Nations Security Council, China and Russia opposing any resolution, any even a statement on Ethiopia. And now the Chinese foreign minister is visiting Eritrea, and we don't know the details. So, U.S. Envoy for Horn of Africa, Jeffrey Feltman, to step down. The U.S. envoy to the Horn of Africa, Jeffrey Feltman, will soon leave his position following setbacks for President Joe Biden's administration in mitigating the conflict in Ethiopia and attempts to salvage a civilian transition of power in Sudan, reported by The National. He is expected to be replaced by career diplomat and former ambassador to Turkey, David Satterfield. Mr. Feldman, 62, took the position in April as the new administration hoped to bolster a U.S. diplomatic role in the Horn of Africa. But 8 months on, the State Department is faced with an increasing challenge in trying to reverse the tide of conflict in Ethiopia and unscramble a coup in Sudan. In both places, different stakeholders threw a spanner into U.S. diplomatic efforts. In Ethiopia, the war front expanded between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed government and the Tigrayan forces, despite U.S. and African Union effort to broker a cessation of hostilities. Mr. Feltman will be traveling to Ethiopia this week and will be meeting Mr. Abiy on Thursday, the State Department said. Addis Ababa has intensified its air campaign since October, using drones and strikes to regain ground. Mr. Feltman's successive trip to Ethiopia and a meeting with Mr. Abiy, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and the opposition attempt to leverage a ceasefire and allow humanitarian access into Tigray and Amhara regions. In Sudan, the October 25 coup came despite commitment the country's military leaders made to Mr. Feltman a day earlier in Khartoum. Since then, the U.S. has restricted its aid to Sudan and has successfully engaged with Sudanese leaders to restore the roadmap to civilian transition. Mr. Feltman's tenure as envoy was marked with shuttle diplomacy trips across the region in the last 8 months. Prior to being a U.S. envoy to the Horn of Africa, he served for about 6 years as the Under-Secretary General for Political Affairs at the United Nations, where he worked directly with former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon on mitigating conflict. He also served for 26 years in the U.S. Foreign Service, including as Assistant Secretary of State for Near East Affairs and as a former ambassador to Lebanon. Mr. Feltman's departure is seen by those close to him as triggered by both personal and professional reasons. The envoy signed up for the position on a part-time basis while maintaining his affiliation as a visiting fellow in international diplomacy at the Brookings Institution. But the demands of the envoy job became more taxing as the situation imploded in Sudan and as Ethiopia descended into a war of attrition. Mr. Satterfield, a career diplomat with more than 4 decades experience in U.S. Foreign Service, could be nominated as soon as next week to replace Mr. Feldman, U.S. source told The National. His last post was U.S. ambassador to Turkey until October, and he previously served in Iraq, Lebanon, Tunisia, and Saudi Arabia. Cameron Hudson, a senior fellow with the Atlantic Council's Africa Center, said Mr. Feldman's exit is not surprising, noting that he was only supposed to be in the job for the 6 months and has already stayed longer. Going forward, Mr. Hudson hoped for continuity in the position and avoiding diplomatic vacuum. It would be damaging to U.S. policy and our credibility if we were seen to be stepping back from these critical issues in Sudan and Ethiopia by allowing a vacuum in our own leadership to merge, he told The National. So credit thenational.com. So Mr. Feldman set to leave his position. He tried, he made several trips to Eritrea, Sudan, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, but he didn't make any breakthrough. So he is giving up. And we are getting another experienced diplomat. So we hope he will be successful. Okay, the last one. This is from U.S. State Department press statement on Kazakhstan state of emergency. The United States is closely following the situation in Kazakhstan, a valued partner. We condemn the acts of violence and the destruction of property and call for restraint by both the authorities and protesters. We ask for all Kazakhstanis to respect and defend constitutional institutions, human rights, and media freedom, including through the restoration of internet service. We urge all parties to find a peaceful resolution of the state of emergency. So that is U.S. statement on the emergency declaration in Kazakhstan. So that's the end. Thank you so much for joining me again. Please try to call the Saudi Arabia embassy and complain about, their treatment, how they are treating Ethiopians in their jails, and exposing our people to COVID-19 and other diseases, and refusing them to give clothing, nutrition, and medication, all that, all the treatment they are doing against children and women in their jails, and putting them 500 in one prison cell. So that's inhuman, that's illegal, that's anti-Islamic, and that's not supposed to happen in that holy country. So please try to reach them, email them, text them, tweet about the issue, and we must stand for justice and humane treatment for our people suffering in Saudi Arabia jails. Thank you. I will be back with other news and other updates. And please subscribe, like my video, share it with a family and a friend. So long and be safe.